perhaps we should talk about Charles Whitman here because he really brings home the point. So this is something that is a case I've written about, many people have written about. So, Whitman committed one of the worst mass murders in U.S. history. This was in 1966. And he started by killing his mother and his wife, I think by stabbing each of them in the heart. And then the next morning, he climbed a tower at the University of Texas and with a small arsenal, spent about 2 hours shooting people at random, and he killed, I think it was 14 and wounded something like 32 until he was finally shot by police. So given those facts, Whitman just appears to be the quintessence of human evil, except he left a suicide note, or what amounted to a suicide note, where he was complaining about his emotional life prior to these events and how he found his behavior totally inexplicable. I mean, he loved his wife and his mother. He had been flooded by irrational thoughts and violent impulses, and he found he couldn't resist them. And I mean, he had terrible headaches, and he had other symptoms. And then he actually recommended that his own brain be autopsied so that doctors could figure out what is wrong with him. And lo and behold, upon his death, his brain was autopsied, and they found a large tumor in his hypothalamus that was pressing on his amygdala. And as you and I both know, this is certainly a plausible place for a tumor to be pressing to drive this symptomology. So when that's discovered, this understanding of a purely neuroanatomical, neurophysiological causal influence becomes exculpatory. We don't view Whitman as one of the most evil people in human history. We view him as a victim of biology, really. I mean, this is an unlucky person, and if you had a glioblastoma pressing against your amygdala 24 hours a day, who knows what you would be up to? And everyone feels this. And my argument has been for years now that really a brain tumor is just a coarse-grained example of clear causality. And to understand something like psychopathy perfectly at the level of the brain, if we could have a perfectly fine-grained account of what's happening at every synapse in the average psychopath's brain, causing him to be a psychopath and not Gandhi, well, then that understanding too would be just like Whitman's brain tumor. It would be exculpatory. We would view psychopaths as unlucky, and however they got that way, whether it's the influence of culture or the parents they didn't pick or the genes that got mutated, we would warehouse them in prison if we had no cure. But if we had a cure, if there was a pill you could give someone that would make them no longer a psychopath, it would be absolutely perverse to withhold that treatment in a vengeful way, as somehow they're just desserts for having been a psychopath. It would be like not performing neurosurgery on someone with a brain tumor that's making him violent. So you and I are on the same page there with respect to understanding, really removing the logic of hating people and justifying the retributive impulse to punish them. But as you said initially, it's never a question of just letting dangerous people roam the streets. I mean, obviously, if the way I make this point is that we would lock up hurricanes and put them in prison if we could, right? I mean, without any illusion that they have free will motivating their destructive behavior.